I am going to show you my profit and loss statement for my multiple six-figure photography business. Today, I want to talk about something that I feel is lacking in the photography and creative community in general, and it's something that I wish I had when I was first getting started in my photography career, and even many years into my photography career, because I just didn't know how much money could you possibly make as a photographer? There's no real average out there. I think in general, we could all use a little bit more transparency. And I don't mean people who go online and say, I made $1 million last year, buy my thing, and you can do it too. I mean, props to them. Amazing that you made $1 million. But I want to see the journey. I want to see the lead up. How did you get to that 100,000, 500,000, 1 million, whatever? I don't care what number it is. How'd you get there? So today I'm going to show you my P&L, profit and loss, for my best year in business as a photographer. But I'm not just going to show you the P&L. I want to show you the journey that it took me to get there because it didn't happen overnight. So stay until the end to see the exact breakdown of my gross revenue plus expenses and all of that stuff. But first, let's start with my journey of how I even got there. My business journey starts in 2018, where I started my career actually as a software engineer at Apple. I know that's like a total 180 from being a photographer, but that's what I went to school for. I got my MBA, I had my undergrad in computer science. I was bred and built to be a tech executive climbing the corporate ladder kind of person. That's what I'd always thought I wanted to do. At the same time, I was already running my photography business on the side because I started it while I was in college. I was taking college graduation photos for my friends and then eventually other people I didn't know. When I moved out to California for my job, I just kind of kept doing it because it was fun for me and I was like, oh, cash on the side to do something fun like taking pictures. Sounds great. And it was also at this point in time that I had met a lot of full-time photographers. I joined a local photography community and I was like, wow, you take pictures full time? This is like your job? That's amazing. Tell me more. And you can't exactly go up to someone you just met and be like, how much money do you make doing this? This was an amazing community for me and provided me with the technical know-how that I needed to become a better photographer. And also around this time is when I decided that I wanted to try everything in photography. So again, I started in college graduations and then I assisted wedding photographers. I second shot, I third shot. I did engagement sessions. I worked with bloggers. Pretty much anything under the sun, I photographed it. Now, the end of 2018 was the first year that I ever did taxes for my business because this was the first year that I was in business. I have some notes here, so if you see me looking, that's what I'm doing. But at the end of 2018, I made about $12,000 in gross profit, but I only took home $6,000 of that. Throughout my entire photography business, I typically maintain around like a 45% to 55% profit margin. So of all of the sales that I make for my business, I take home about 50% of that, and the rest goes to expenses. I will give you a detailed breakdown of that. Now, there are a couple of ways to look at this. On one hand, I was thrilled because this was just a hobby for me, and $6,000 is enough to pay for my gear. Like, amazing. That sounds great. On the other hand, because I was starting to consider, like, can I make this my full-time career? $6,000 is like nothing. And also, I was starting to spend a lot of my time in photography, so I was a little surprised at the end of the year, which, by the way, was the only time I looked at my numbers, my bookkeeping. Don't recommend. And I just thought I would have made more based on how much time I was spending in it. So that was a little bit of a wake-up call. That was the end of 2018. Now remember, I mentioned I also have my MBA, and looking at your numbers is like the first thing you learn in MBA school, like take an accounting class, run a profit and loss statement. But I think deep down, I knew I was going to be disappointed by these numbers, so I just avoided it, which again, I don't recommend. That's not really a good way or any way to operate a business. So now 2019 rolls around and I'm starting to seriously consider taking this full time. Can I turn my hobby into a full-time business? Because also at this point, I started to realize that my career in software engineering, I wanted to have a successful career, but to do it in that way, going through the software engineer path, that lifestyle wasn't really aligned with how I wanted to live my life. I didn't want to be in an office all the time. I wanted flexible hours. I wanted to be at home so that when we eventually raise a family, I have the flexibility to do that. And software engineering just it didn't make sense for me. So that's why I started to look at running a photography business and if I could make this possible. So at the beginning of 2019, I'm like, Emily, you got to step it up. If you ever even want to consider taking this business full time, like something has to change. So I really doubled down. I started taking my marketing seriously. I got a new logo. I redesigned my website. I did a lot of things. I was also taking on any kind of assistant gig that I can find, second shooting, doing as much as I could to learn as much as possible and get as good at photography as I possibly could. And you know what? It kind of paid off because in 2019, I doubled my revenue. So I went from $12,000 in sales to $28,000 in sales, and then $6,000 in profit in 2018 to $14,000 in profit in 2019. So again, I doubled, but it didn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things if I wanted to take that income and try to live off of it in the Bay Area in California. So I was making progress, but again, nowhere near what I wanted, which was to make $100,000 in profit. Not just in sales. I wanted 6 figures in profit. Another fault that I had in 2019 was still not looking at my numbers, despite what happened in 2018, where I did all this work and saw I thought I would have made more. 2019, I still didn't look at my numbers at all until I had to around tax time, which is very stressful. Please don't do that. Hire a bookkeeper, hire an accountant, do whatever you need to do. It was yet again another wake-up call because I was treating it, or at least I thought I was treating it like a business, but it was not yielding the results that I needed. Not looking at your numbers monthly is like driving a car blindfolded. It is no way to run a business. So towards the end of 2019 is when I started working with a business mentor for the first time. I hired one for a 2-hour consult, and my focus for this was sales. I had a really hard time getting on the phone with potential clients, and I felt like I had to sell them on my service. I didn't even have enough conviction in what I was selling, but working with her really helped me adopt and grow a growth mindset, and it just helped me get more comfortable being on the phone with potential clients. Now, 2020 rolls around, and we all know what happened, but the interesting thing is the effect on my business was actually positive because I am in the brand photography niche. All of a sudden, 2020, nobody's meeting in person. Everybody has to be online. So everybody started booking brand photos. On top of this, I also ended up getting more flexibility because work from home became a thing. So I could take meetings during lunch sometimes. I could have early morning shoots. I mean, I was already doing that before work anyway, but it was just a little bit more flexible for me to do photography in the morning, occasionally for an hour during lunch, and then after 5 or 6 p.m. At the end of 2020, I doubled my revenue yet again. So I reached around $50,000 in gross profit, but I only took home $24,000 of that. So it's great progress. I doubled again, but still not enough to meet my goal of $100,000 in profit. It was also around this time that I began to reach my breaking point with my corporate software engineering job. Don't get me wrong. It was an amazing job. I'm so grateful for that opportunity, but I was part of the Great Resignation. I did some soul searching and it just wasn't aligned with where I wanted to be. I really don't like writing code, and that's what I was doing all day. So when we started working from home, my favorite part of my job, which was talking to people, got ripped away. So I was doing something that I really didn't like every day. And I don't want to sound ungrateful for it because it was an amazing job. I'm so grateful that I had this opportunity, but it was really affecting my mental health. So this is where it gets a little bit wonky because my original plan, based on this trajectory that I had, was to leave my corporate job in 2025. The time of publishing of this video is 2024, and I quit 3 years ago. So clearly I didn't stick to that. I actually left my job around halfway through 2021. Now there are 3 big reasons why it happened in 2021. Number 1, like I just said, I had reached my breaking point. Number 2, I reached the point where I had enough clients that I did not have the time to take on anymore. So I was time restrained. And then number 3 is kind of like the universe's sign, I guess. When I started working with this business coach towards the end of 2019, I worked with her on and off throughout 2020. One of the exercises that she had me do was set my 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year goals. After I did that, she told me, okay, make your 5-year goal your 3-year goal, make your 3-year goal your 1-year goal, and make your 1-year goal your 6-month goal. And I was like, that's crazy, because my 5-year goal was to have a photography studio. I really wanted my own space for my own clients that I had total control over, because it's also just so difficult to find locations that work for everyone. If I just had my own, it would make things so much easier. Well, it turns out she was right. I was doing some market research one night. I was just looking online at commercial leases and commercial spaces just to see what that process was like, because we had just talked about it. So I found this place. It was only 10 minutes away from where I lived. It was available for rent, and I just sent off an email to inquire how much rent was. The landlord said, oh, do you want to come and see it? I have availability next week. So I said, okay, let's go. I'm just going to go look at it. I'm not going to sign this lease. So I went to go see it. The landlord said rent is normally $3,100, but we'll drop it down to $3,000 for you. And It's available now. I had brought my husband, then fiance at the time, and I looked at him and he looked at me and he was like, okay, I guess this is happening now. So we went home, we talked about it. And because I had already reached my capacity, I couldn't take on any more clients. I said, look, I can either stay at my job, do what I'm doing, be this busy all the time at my corporate job and doing photography on the side, or I can quit my job, sign this lease, take on more clients, and open this photography studio at the same time. So the next week, I signed the lease and I quit my job. I would not recommend doing this. This is just what happened to me, and I jumped at the opportunity. I also had enough savings for like a year of runway in case anything happened, where I could cover the cost of the studio and my living expenses if I needed to. So that helped play into this decision. And also the lease that I signed was only for a year long. I had an out a year from then if I couldn't make it work. Was it terrifying? Yes. Would I recommend quitting your job and then taking on a $3,000 monthly expense? No. But like I said, I did the math, and I had also planned to take the studio and rent it out by the hour to other photographers to cover the cost of rent. That was my game plan. I was going to use it for my photography clients and also rent it out to other photographers. That was around June of 2021. And then by the end of 2021, so that was about 6 months of me being full-time, I hit $130,000, six figures. Awesome. But again, around a 50% profit margin, I took home about $58,000 in profit. That was the lead up until 2022, which was my best year yet in photography. 2022 was also the first year that I was a full-time photographer for the whole year, so January through December. And this was the year I hit my goal. I brought home $246,000 in sales and $123,000 in profit. So again, hovering around that 50% profit margin. That is the timeline from 2018 to 2022. That's what it took for me to get to that number that I had been reaching for so long. Now, what I want to do is dig into my profit and loss statement and talk about how much does it actually cost to run that kind of business. So looking at my profit and loss statement here, the bulk of my income came from photography services. So $187,935 were from me booking one-on-one photography services. And maybe, did I have an associate? Yeah, no, this was me doing everything. I did not hire an associate this year for anything. The next highest block of revenue came from the Sunlight Space, which again is my studio. I rented it out by the hour to help cover rent. So that brought in about almost $50,000 in revenue. So $49,665.45, which did cover my rent expense, but also keep in mind I had startup costs for the Sunlight Space. I invested about $15,000 upfront in gear, renovations, all that kind of stuff. So it did cover rent and then some, but I did break even on my investment at the end of this year. Next up, outside of photography and outside of the Sunlight Space bookings, I made about $5,500 in consulting and strategy. So this is when people book one-off coaching calls with me. I did a couple of like tech and CRM setups for some people. And then I made about $2,500 from my online shop. So I had a couple of courses. I had, a brand photography course with your iPhone. So taking your brand photos with your phone course. And that brought in $2,500. So in case you were wondering, courses are not passive income. My digital products made up a pretty small percentage of my overall income. That is where all of the money came from. Now, looking at what I spent things on, we're going to start with cost of goods sold, which are costs that I have because of the service that I offer. That's editing, that's having assistants on set, that's having hair and makeup artists, and renting other studio spaces that aren't mine. So for me, my biggest cost of goods sold expenses were editing, because I was working with an editor at the time, space rentals, which I bill to the client anyway, so I'm kind of just a pass-through, and also makeup artists and stylists, which I technically bill to the client, but I just include it in my package price, so I'm kind of a pass-through for that. So my total cost of goods sold was $23,000. That brings my gross profit after the $23,000 to $222,983. Now, if we come down to my operating expenses, these are expenses for my business that I would have regardless of the type of business that I am in. So examples are a virtual assistant, right? I'm going to have a virtual assistant regardless of if I'm doing photo shoots or if I'm doing consulting, things like marketing, copywriters, bookkeeping, advertising, all of the other things. In 2022, one of my big focuses was growing my team and being able to take me out of the equation for a lot of things. So my highest operating expense is the contractors category. I have a bookkeeper, I had a copywriter, I had a Pinterest manager, and a virtual assistant. That amounted to about $18,606 for contractors. Could I have made more money by not paying them and doing some of this work myself? Absolutely. But also, it freed up so much of my time. And at this time in 2022, one of my goals was to grow a team because at the time, I thought that's what I wanted. We can talk about that later. Next on the list are credit card and processing fees. That came out to about $6,462. Credit card and payment processing fees are a cost of doing business. Please don't use something sketchy or complicated like Zelle or checks. I just recommend taking credit or debit cards because it's typically the easiest way for clients to pay you and you don't have to chase them down. You can use an online invoicing system. Stripe and PayPal and Square, they have to get paid too. I don't even look at these fees anymore because I'm like, okay, I have to pay it. It's like insurance. I have to have it. Other big line items include equipment. I feel like every year I'm like, I don't need to buy anything this year, but then every year something comes up. In 2022, I spent $2,753 in equipment. I think I got a new camera this year. Yes, I got my first mirrorless camera in 2022. Next up, some smaller line items include gifts. I got branded candles to give my clients as gifts that year. That was almost $500. Insurance is almost $800 for the year. Other big line items are props, which are props that I would buy for the studio. Rent, of course, it was $3,000 a month. Software subscriptions, stuff like Lightroom, website, like Airtable, Notion. There's all kinds of software subscriptions that I have. I'm always trying to pare it down. In 2022, software cost me $4,892. And then the last couple of big items are training and education. In 2022, I spent $10,553 on courses, training, coaches, I think a mastermind. I do feel like I overspent this year in education, only because I bought things that I didn't need. Of the things that helped me, it was 100% worth the investment. I ended up investing in a LinkedIn course that I kind of implemented, but then didn't. So I didn't see the results from the course, so it was my own fault. Like, I didn't need to buy this LinkedIn course. I did. It was a great course. I shouldn't have bought it at the time. So that is my profit and loss statement, which brings me to the total of $123,681.08 for the year of 2022. And like I said, this was my best year yet in photography. And in case you're wondering, Emily, you published this in 2024. Why was 2022 your best year yet and not 2023? That is because I moved across the country from California all the way to Boston, Massachusetts in 2023. I still ended up with $176,000-ish in revenue and then taking home $93,000-ish in profit. I also want to point out in 2022, there was 1 month that I operated at a loss, and that was in November. I lost about $2,100. And that's not saying like I went in the red, like I had cash in my bank account, but I didn't turn a profit in November of 2022. I was really freaked out at first, but at this point I had started working with my bookkeeper who was giving me monthly reports, so I had a pulse on what was going on in my business. And in November of 2022, this makes total sense because I was traveling and then I took 2 or 3 weeks off of work. So of course, if I'm not working, I'm probably not going to make as much money. That's not how my business was set up. The important thing I want to mention here is that your business likely won't have linear growth. I did have linear growth, right? I was growing at the same rate from 2018 through 2021, but then I moved across the country. Your life changes, your business changes, things change. This is why it's so important to look at your finances regularly. Because I've been working with my bookkeeper for so long, I don't feel scared to look at my numbers anymore. I like to go in and see exactly where money is going, where money is coming from, and that has made me a much better business owner. I want to reiterate that I'm not sharing this to show off, but I'm sharing it because this is something that I wish somebody shared with me when I was getting into business. Also know that we all have different businesses. Everything is going to look different depending on your lifestyle goals, the way you run your business, whatever. I know super successful photographers that keep their expenses at like 15 to 25% versus my 50%, right? But their goal at the time was not to build a team. So it all depends on you. It's going to be dependent on you. This is how I run my business. This is not necessarily a map for how you should run your business unless we have like similar lifestyle goals. Do you know what I mean? So what are the big takeaways here? Number 1 is to know your goals. What kind of lifestyle do you want and what do you need to make that happen? Because I was leaving my corporate job, I used that as a baseline. I was like, okay, This is how much I need to make to replace income from my job, but it's also important to remember that it takes time to build a sustainable business. Of course, there will be people that skyrocket and make a lot of money really quickly, but that wasn't the case for me, and it wasn't the case for a lot of people in business. Number two is after determining your goals, know how to reverse engineer your business from those goals. So based on your lifestyle goal, how much money do you need to make that lifestyle a reality? And to make that revenue, how many clients do you need to take on? I actually have a tool that I used myself. It's my photography pricing calculator. I'll leave it in the description, but it will walk you through step by step exactly how to incorporate your lifestyle goals. So based on your lifestyle goal, it will show you what minimum price you should be charging per session based on how many clients you want to take on a year and all of that. It is in the description. Takeaway number 3 is to keep track of your numbers on a regular basis. I really think I could have made this transition happen faster had I been doing that and had I not been so scared to look at my own numbers. It's okay if you are. I totally get it because I was 100% there. I even have my MBA, but take baby steps. Maybe work with the bookkeeper so somebody else prepares your numbers for you, but keep track of them. Don't wait until tax time to look at everything. Number 4 is to invest in your business, but to do it strategically. I mentioned earlier some of the coaches and courses that I invested in were absolutely game-changing for my business, but some of them I didn't need. The key here is to make sure your investments are aligned with your long-term goals. Number 5 is to be patient and know that overnight success can happen, but the more likely story is that it's going to take time for you to build something great, and that is okay. It took me 5 years to hit 6 figures in profit. Number 6 is to not compare your business journey to others. We are all on our own unique paths. We all have different stories. We all have different responsibilities, and that's okay. Some people might be able to hustle 24/7, and other people might have a family. You can't hustle 24/7 when you have a family. So take your business at your pace. I would love to know your thoughts on this, and if there's anything you want to chat about, you can leave it in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like because that helps me know that you like it. In my next video, I'm going to be talking more about how I moved my business from the West Coast to the East Coast, and I'll see you there.